Hello and welcome to CodedUI training topic 2. From here onwards, we'll get started with C# programming, which is in fact the code behind in CodedUI automation. That's why we need to know how to write a C# code that will help us building a robust automation suite using hand coding. So as far as this topic is concerned, we will look at some of the basic syntax structure of a C# program. Then we'll talk about the different operators which are supported in C# programming. And then we'll talk about decision control statements, if, else, if, else, switch, ternary, and all. Then we'll talk about iterators, that it loops in programming C#. Then we'll talk about array, array list, hash table, and different collections which are available in C#, which we heavily use in CodedUI automation. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to launch Visual Studio, and I will start a new project. And I'll select C#, Visual C#, and in this I will start with console application. I'm going to name this project as C# fundamentals. Here you see two options, right? Create directory for the solution, that will create our project in directory, which is fine. And then other option is add to source control. This option usually we use for in order to check in our solution in TFS. So, but right now we are not going to do that. So I'm going to let it be unchecked. I'll press on OK. And this is a default program that gets loaded. Here you see program.cs is a main file where the main function is. And as soon as the execution control comes, this is the first block that gets executed. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this program really simple. So I'm going to delete some of unwanted things that I don't need as far as the objective of this class is concerned. Okay. Now, okay, I will delete this also because I don't need it. Here you see the first line is using system. Okay, system is basically namespace. What namespace means is, namespace is nothing but a collection of different classes, packages, structs, enums, and all that. Since we have a different chapter altogether in our codes that talks about namespace, we will see how a namespace can be created and what are its utilities and advantages. So I'm going to ignore namespace part at this point in detail, but I will tell a little bit about it, which namespace and all that has to be used. But at this point, what you need to understand is, if we need to utilize some of the C# libraries that we will use, so we have to include the subsequent namespace for that. Okay. Now here you see program.cs. This is basically a class program. And in this class program, there is a main method from where the execution starts. Okay. So first I'm going to talk about how to do a comment in C#. Okay. Comment is important in order to explain what it does. Let's say this main method. Okay. I need to comment this. So I will use a single line comment, that is double forward slash, and I will write main method. Okay, so for single line comments, we use double forward slash. If we need to do a multi-line comments, for multi-line comments, what we need to do is you need forward slash, then asterisk, and then you should terminate with asterisk and forward slash. Now here, whatever you want to write, you can write. So I'm going to write what are the minimum requirements to build a C# program. So first thing is, we need to specify namespace. Second, it needs to have a class. then it needs to have a main method, and depending upon the need, it needs to have some sort of statements. This is the basic C# program structure. Okay. Now I'm going to write console. I need to just print welcome to CodedUI training. I'm going to write console dot write line, and here I can write a message whatever we need to print. I will write welcome to CodedUI training. Now console is a class. You see here, if you will mouse over on it, you will see class system.console. So console is a class which is in system namespace. Okay, that's why we have included system namespace. And write line is a method which is in console class. So that's why we are writing console.writeLine. In case we don't want to specify the namespace. Let's say if I do like this. Okay, I commented it. Now it is throwing an error. What I can do is I can write system dot console. Okay, if I will do something like this, this is called as a fully qualified name. I am specifying that console class is in system namespace, and write line is a method that exists in console class. So mouse over it, it says namespace system, right? So this is called as, this is how we can write fully qualified name if we don't want to include namespace. But you know, sometimes it will become very tedious job to write those such big names. That's why it's always preferred to use namespaces. Now I can remove this from here. Okay, so this is a simple program which is supposed to print welcome to CodedUI training. In order to run this program, you simply click on start, or you can press F5. If I click on it, it will run. Okay, it ran. You saw a black screen, but we are not able to see that output. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to write another statement, console dot read key. What it will do is it will hold a screen for a .NET user for input. Unless the .NET user is not going to press any key, that screen will be there, so we can monitor what is printed there. Okay. Welcome to CodedUI training. Okay. All right. So this is how a simple program in C# looks like. In C# program, class is mandatory. That's why it is also called as highly object-oriented programming. For example, if you guys would have studied C++, you must have noticed that in order to write a simple program, let's say summation of two numbers and all that, you really don't need to design a class. You can make that program without a class also. But in C#, we cannot write even a hello world program without a class. Okay. Now next thing is variables. How to declare a variable in C#. So in order to declare the variable, what we do is we need to specify we need to specify first data type, okay, and then name of the variable name, okay, and semicolon. This is how we do declaration of a variable. For example, I have to declare a variable of type integer, then I will write integer, and then let's say I have to say number. So name of the variable is number. This is how we declare a variable in number. Okay, this is a warning which is coming. It is telling the variable number is declared but have not used, because we have not continued the program, right? So which is fine, which is supposed to come. Now next thing is different type of data types that supports, which are available in C#. So there is variable called a data type integer, then string, then bool, then float, double, byte. There are a lot of primitive data types which are available in C#. You can find more in MSDN site what are the total number of variables which are available. Now, so this is how you can declare different data types. Let's say if I need to declare an integer variable and I need to assign 10. This is how I assign any value to a variable. Okay, cut it here and I will put it here. Now if I need to print console dot write line and variable number, it will be printed. Okay, now I can move this console dot read key here. Okay, now there are few things that we need to understand is, number one, in write line, if we will write like this number, that is a local variable, so at runtime the value of number will be printed, that is 10 will be printed. For example, if by mistake I do like this, okay, then a string number will be printed. Okay, let's run it. You'll see string number is printed, but we are interested to print the value of that number. So I will do something like this. Now 10 will be printed. See, 10 is printed. Okay. All right. So this is about a simple C# program. Now next thing that we need to talk about is data types. Okay. So next thing is operators. There is a variety of operator types. One is of type arithmetic operators. So in arithmetic operators, it's plus, minus, multiplication, and division. For all arithmetic calculation, we can use it. Then another category of operator is a logical operator. Let's say we have to combine two things. So we can use the first operator, that is double ampersand. It's called as AND operator. Then if we need to do either or, then we can use OR operator, which is called as double pipe signs. Then exclamatory operator, not. Let's say we have to say this is not. Okay. So we can use exclamatory operator, then greater than, less than, greater than, equals to, less than, equals to, not equals to. So these are some of the logical operators which are available for a programmer to do the calculations accordingly. Now the next category of operators is unary operators. There are two types of unary operators. One is plus plus and one is minus minus. What these operators does is it increments the value of an operand. Okay. Let's say a is equals to 10. If I say a plus plus, then a will be increased by 1. If we have to do an increment by 1, we can use unary operator. Likewise, if we have to do decrement by 1, we can use minus minus. So unary operators need only one operand to operate upon. Now next one is the comparison operator. Comparison operator, let's say we have to equate two variables or maybe two strings. So we can use double equals operator. Let's say we have to compare whether A is equals to B or not. So we can say A double equals B. And next operator is assignment operator, that we have seen in the example. We have assigned a number is equals to 10. So what it was doing is 10 was getting assigned on a variable number. So assignment operator is used to assign any value to a variable. Okay, so so this was all about the operators, and we will be using operators over the period of time. So we will get very comfortable with different operators that are available. Now next thing is decision control statements. Now, what are decision control statements, right? Decision control statements. What a decision control statement means is, when there is multiple choices, compilers need to think which one is true or false. Accordingly, the action has to be taken. Correct? Human being can use their intelligence to take a decision out of the choices. Likewise, in programming, there are a lot of decision control statements which are made where compiler can take the appropriate decision as per the condition being passed or evaluated. So there are multiple statements, multiple decision control statements, like first one is if statement, then if else statement, then third is if else if statement, else statement, then fourth one is switch statement, and then fifth statement is ternary operator. Okay. See, sometimes people call this ternary operator as a part of operator, and sometimes people call it as part of statement. But ideally, it is a part of a decision control statement because it takes multiple values and or it takes a condition and accordingly the statement gets executed. So that's why it's a part of statement. Okay. Now we are going to look at one by one. So what I will do is, since I don't want to make a different program, what I can do is I will actually make small functions for each one of those examples. Okay, so don't worry much about how I am making methods and all that. We have a separate session for different methods type that we can design. But for now, I will simply tell few things that in order to design method, we need to write access specifier to specify scope. Right now, I'm making it static. The reason is I don't want to create an instance of a program class. What is that instance and all that? Don't bother about it now. We have object-oriented program where you will see everything in detail. Right now, simply use this to understand, to make a method. Okay, because right now our focus is not to talk about different methods and all. We are going to work on decision control statements, and in order to keep everything separate, I am just writing methods. So I will write void if example. This is our method, and here I will be writing all my logic. Okay, so first we need to see what is the syntax of a if statement. So the syntax of the statement is, we need to write if, then we need to write here condition, and then we can write statements. Okay, now how this execution happens is, compiler will come to this if block, and if this condition is true, okay, if this condition is true, then only these statements will be executed. Okay, now so let's do a quick implementation. Let's say I have to check whether a number is positive or negative. Okay, so first I need to take input from the user. So for that I am going to display a message Hold on. I need to write this here. Okay, I was creating it outside the class actually. I need to create it here. Okay, I will make it. I'll write console dot write line enter any number. Okay, and now in order to take any number and store in a variable, we need to declare, right? So I'm going to declare integer number. Okay, this is a variable. Now, how to take a input from the user? So in order to do that, I will write number is equals console dot read line. Okay, this will take the input from the user. Now I can actually combine these two lines together and I can write something like this. Okay, now one thing again you need to understand is we have declared a variable number of type integer, and whatever we take in the console, that is treated as a string always. Okay, so right hand side thing is a string right now, and left hand side we are trying to store in an integer, so that's why it's throwing an error. So what we need to do is we need to convert this right hand side value to an integer, which is called as typecasting. So in order to convert any string to an integer, I will write integer dot parse, and in bracket I will write this. Now whatever user will give an input, it will be converted into an integer type. That's what we wanted, correct? Okay, now I'm going to write a condition. We want to print we want to check whether a number is positive or negative. So how to check whether a number is positive or negative? If number is greater than 0, then number is positive. If number is less than 0, then it's negative. So I will write if we have taken the input in a variable number is greater than 0, then what I can write? I can say console dot write line number is positive. Number is positive. Okay, so this is the condition for positive. Likewise, I can make one more if statement. If number is less than 0, then I can say number is negative. So I will just copy this and I will say number is negative. Okay, and now so we have written our logic in this method, public void if example. What I will do is I will actually call this to run this program. Okay, this is not in the main method right now. So what I will do is I will basically comment this code. Actually, I don't need all that code, so I will comment it. Now here what I will do is I will call this if example method that I have designed. In order to call this method, we simply need to write the name of the method and then semicolon. Now there is a function called if example. As soon as execution control will come inside this main block, it will see this example method. Immediately it will jump to the definition of it, which is this, and it will execute and do the actions accordingly. We can run and see. Okay, here it's asking for enter a number. Let's say I will say 21. Number is positive. Okay, if I will say something like minus 23, the number is negative. Okay. My objective is not to tell you what is how to print a positive and negative number. What you need to understand is this is how we write conditions. Now there is one problem here. Okay. One problem is for any value, both the conditions are getting executed. Let's say I gave an input of 23. Okay. So here, let's say user has given input 23. Now in number, what has been stored is number is 23. Now compiler will come to the if block. If it will compare 23 is greater than 0. Yes, it's correct. It will come inside this if block and it will execute this statement and will say number is positive. Then it will again go to if this particular if block. It will say 23 is less than 0. Oh no, condition is false. So this particular line will not be executed. But one thing that we need to notice is for any number that user is giving an input, both the if blocks are getting executed. My question is why we need to execute both the statements. If a number is positive, that means we need not to go and execute this. At this point in time, both the condition are getting executed. So execution complexity is basically getting increased by 2, which is not a good performance. So that's why a different type of decision control statement has been executed, which is called as if-else statement. In if-else statement, if first condition is true, then the compiler doesn't come to the second condition. Okay, so let's look at the example of it. So what I'm going to do is, in order to save the time, I'm going to copy the same method and I will change it accordingly. And I will write here if else example. See, I've changed the name of the method, and I will simply do is I will remove this condition from here and I will say else. Now what will happen in this case is if this if block is being executed, then compiler will not come here and it will not do a evaluation of the condition. So we actually increase the performance of a program. So if else is always better to use when there is two choices or two options rather than using multiple if statements. Okay. If I need to call this example, I will comment this because I don't need to run first example. I need to run second example. So I will write if else example and I can run it. Okay. Enter number 21. The number is positive. Okay. Now, so if else is always better to use if there are two options or two conditions. Now question comes, what will happen if there is three choices? Okay. Let's say in the same example, if I need to extend and I need to find out, okay, if number is positive, whether number is positive or negative or it's 0. Okay, 0 is neither positive nor negative, or maybe it's either positive or negative. So now here we need to do three conditions. This if else will not be fit in the bill, right? Because if else can only be used for two conditions. We can do certainly here we can do nesting and all that, but I don't want to do I don't want to make it complex. So for that we will do if else statement. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy again the same thing so that I can save some time, and I will change it if state example. Okay. I will comment this particular code also. Now here what I will do is I will write if I have written if number is greater than 0, if is positive, if else if number is less than 0, then I will say number is negative. If the number is neither positive nor negative, what will happen? Then I can write else console dot write line. Oh, it's 0. It's 0. Okay. And this is how we can use if else statements. Now I will go and call this method here if to run it, and let's run it. Let's say I will put 11. Oh, it's positive. Okay. Second time I will go and run for negative numbers. 23. Oh, it's negative. Next time I will go and I will 0. Oh, it's 0. Okay. So that's how, so we can utilize if else statements for when there are multiple statements. And if let's say if there are 4 conditions, so what we can do is we can actually go and write one more if else block here. Okay, we can write as many as we want in between. Okay, there is no limitation. So multiple else if can be written as per the total number of conditions. Okay. Now, next thing is, next type of statement is called a switch statement. Okay. So I will make a new method to understand switch public static void switch example. Okay. Switch is also a decision control statement. And let's look at the syntax how we use switch. Now what I want to do is basically I want to, let's say I want to print I want to take input from the user in between 1 to 7, and I need to print a subsequent day according to it. For example, if user gives an input number 1, I will print Sunday. If user gives input 2, I will print Monday. And likewise, if user gives input up till 7, I will print all those numbers up till Saturday. And if let's say user can give any input, right? If user gave an input 100, will display a message wrong choice or invalid number, something like that I want to do. So in this example, there are multiple examples, multiple conditions. I can also use if else statements as well, right? That we have already seen. So let's see how we do that as far as switch goes. Switch sometimes is very helpful because it reduces the program complexity in terms of implementation. Okay, performance wise, I feel both are same, but it increases sometimes readability when there are too many conditions. So what I'm going to do is, as usual, I'm going to display a message, enter any number, and then I will take the input from the user. The number is equals to int dot parse, because we need to convert that into the integer value, dot read line, and now I will start writing switch. In order to write switch block, we need to use keyword switch, and here I will pass the value that I have taken from the user, and then I will make this block, and then I will write cases. Okay, in if else block, there is if and then condition, right? In switch there are cases. Okay, so what is the first case? First case is when user gives an input 1. Okay, so I will write something like this. This is the actual value that user is going to give, so I put it here, and after that I have to write semicolon, and then here I will write console dot write line and I can say Sunday. And then I have to basically write default. Okay, I have to write break. What break will do is, as soon as this condition, let's say this condition is true, okay, case one condition is true, so compiler will come and execute this statement. After that, we don't need to go and execute other statements. So break will help terminating this switch block. Okay. Likewise, I can use another case for my second condition, this case 2, and here I can write Monday. Likewise, I can use other cases. What happens when user gives input 3? When user will give input 3, I want to print Tuesday. When user will give input 4, I will print Wednesday. Now, what will happen when user will give input 5? So I will print for 5, I can print Thursday. For 6, I will print Friday. And for 7, I will print Saturday. Okay. Now, as I said, user may give any other input apart from 1, 2, 3, 4 and all, right? Apart from 1 to 7, user can give any other input. So at that case, I can make a default case. So I will write default, and here I can write console.writeLine, and I can say invalid input, terminated, and then break. Okay. Now this is how we write switch. Here I have given an integer value. You can pass characters, you can pass string, anything you can pass in here. Now I will go and run this example. So I will go and comment the previous one because I don't want to run that. Here I will write switch example and this. Okay, let's run this program. Enter any number. I said number 3. See, it printed Tuesday. Let's say if I will say some invalid number. Okay, some invalid data. This. See, invalid input. So this is how we can write a program. You guys can go and try to make a simple calculator where you pass plus, minus, and all that. Take 2 numbers from the user and do the calculations accordingly. If give a choice, okay. First show a message, enter your choice. So user can give plus symbol or minus symbol or any other calculator functionality related sign, and you do the calculation accordingly. Very easy and straightforward. You can try doing it. Now, ternary operator is the next one that we will see in the later sessions. Okay. Now, next thing is loops. Okay. So loops are sometimes called as iterators, and which is used to perform a repetitive set of tasks. Okay. Loops, or it is called as iterators also. Let's say you have to perform same set of instructions multiple times. If we don't know the concept of loop, what we will do is we will write the same statements multiple times. However, if we know what exactly loops are, what we can do is we can actually keep on iterating the same instructions multiple times as per the need. Now there are multiple loops which are available in C# or in any other programming. To name a few, one is while loop, do while loop, for each loop, and all that. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll look some of the examples of loops, and we'll see how loops are important. So as usual, what I will do is, I will go and copy it here. Okay. And I will go and make separate methods again, as earlier we did for loops also. Okay. So I will write void, sorry, I can say public void public static void while loop example, and this. Okay, so let's look at the syntax of a while loop. We need to specify keywords first. Okay, as far as loops goes, there are few things which are mandatory, or we need to know. First thing is initialization. Initialization is basically the entry point of loop. Okay. Second thing is condition. Okay. Condition tells us that how long the loop has to continue. Loop has to iterate. Okay. And then the third thing that we need to specify is increment or decrement. Okay. Either we increase the value or decrease the value, and accordingly we go and validate the condition as per the needs. So the syntax of while loop is, we need to write while, then in bracket we need to specify condition, and if this condition is true, then loop comes, then while comes, then execution controls comes inside the while block and perform all the statements, and then we need to do increment or decrement here, and then bracket close. So what happens is, okay, now how the execution will happen is, and okay, before that we need to do initialization also. Initialization. Okay, what will happen is, control will come and do the initialization, means it will set the entry point of the loop, then it will come to the while block, it will validate whether the condition is true or false. If condition is true, then it will come and it will execute the statement. After executing the statement, it will do increment or decrement as per what we have specified. After doing it, it will again go to condition, and it will again validate the condition. If the condition is still true, it will again come inside the block and execute the statements, and likewise, so on and so forth. It will keep on iterating until this condition gets false. Okay, so let's look at one very simple example. Let's say if I need to print a series from 1 to 10, okay, or maybe any series, whatever the number user gives an input. So in order to take the input from the user, I want to display some message. Okay, I forgot to tell one thing. In console, there are two methods to display a message. One is write and other one is write line. Write line basically prints the statement in the next line, and write will always print on the same line. That's why I'm using write line, so that the console looks more readable. And I'll say enter any number. And as usual, I will take the input from the user in a variable n this time, and I will write integer dot parse, and I will write console dot read line. Okay. Now I need, as I said, first thing is we need to do an initialization. What we need here is we want to print a series from 1 to the number that user has given. So I will write n is equals, I will declare one variable, integer I is equals 1. Okay, that I did an initialization. Now I will write while number I is less than or is equals to the number that user has given, I less than or equals to n, and then I will say console dot write line number I, and then here I can say I plus plus. Let's look at the execution, what is going to happen. User will take the number from the console, and let's say user has given an input 10. So right now in n, what will be the value? 10. Okay, I has been initiated with value 1. So compiler will come inside this while block, and it will compare whether I right now is 1. 1 is less than or is equals to n. N is 10. So yes, 1 is less than 10. The condition is true. It will come inside this while block, and it will print the value of I, which is 1 right now. So I equals to 1 being printed. Then I will be increased by 1. Okay. So now the value of I will become 2. Again, it will go to while block, and again it will do a comparison. So now right now I became 2, so it will be compared. 2 is less than or is equals to 10. It's again the condition is true, and it will keep on iterating like this. This condition will become false when the value of I will become 11. Okay. So this was the case when user has given an input 10. So let's go and run this program. In order to run it, I need to call this method, and so I don't need previous one. I will comment this switch example, and I will comment while loop example this. Okay, let's run this program. Enter any number. Let's say user has given 10. Will print a number from 1 to 10. Okay, let's say if user has given a number 200 or 2000, it will start printing number. See, it has printed from 1 to 2000. Okay, let me show you. Printed from, oh okay, it has printed actually. Okay, it came to a different screen. All right, so this is how we can write while loop. Now another example I want to do is I will give this as while loop example 1. Okay, because I want to make few more examples. Cool. Now let's say if I need to print only odd numbers or maybe even numbers, so how I can do that using while loop. I will say while loop example, while loop, let's say even numbers. Okay, now again I will take the user input from the user, and I will do the validation, but I will not print I, because I have to print only even numbers this time. So what I will do is I will write a small condition here, and I will say if if I mod is an operator which is used to calculate the remainder. So what are even numbers? Even numbers are those numbers which are, when divided by number 2, the remainder comes 0. Correct? So if I'll say, if I mod 2 is equals 0, then only print this statement. Otherwise, don't print it. Okay, now this program became to print only even numbers up till the number user has given an input. So let's say user has given an input 30. So see, it's printing everything. Hold on. I did some mistake. Hold on. If one second, it's a wrong logic, but I'm just trying to see something. Okay, it's not coming to this if block also. Listen one. Oh, it was correct. I didn't call this method, so I need to call this method. Okay, I will comment this previous method and I will call this method. Okay, I was not calling this. So let's say user given input 30, so it will print only only even numbers 2 up till 30. So that's how we can utilize while loops. You can try a few more examples. You can try to calculate factorial and all using using while loop. Now next loop that we are going to see is for loop. Say public void public static void for loop example. Now for loop is basically, again, since it's a loop, again it will have all the three things, that is initialization, condition, increment and decrement. But in for loop, everything comes inside the inside the parenthesis. Sorry. For example, the syntax is, you need to write for, and then you need to write initialization, then you need to write condition, and then you need to write increment or decrement, and then you can write all your statements. Okay, so let's try to convert the same example of this was even number, so I will say odd number this time. Okay, I want to print odd numbers, so I will copy few lines so that I do not need to write. So I will take the input. Now I'll write for. I have to do an initialization, right? So earlier in while block, before while, we do the initialization, but here we will do inside it. So I need to declare a variable integer I is equals 1 and I less than r is equals to the number that user has given, and then I plus plus. Then I will write the same logic, but here we need to print odd numbers, correct? So I will write if I mod 2 is equals 1. What are odd numbers? Odd numbers are those numbers which are when divided by 2, the remainder comes 1. So this percentage operator is used to calculate the remainder. And if the remainder is 1, then only I want to print that number. So I will write console dot write line number I. Okay. So here you see increment decrement is here inside this block. Okay. So this is how we can design for loops. Let's go and quickly run this. I will go and comment this particular section, and I will write for loop example, and I will say, let's say 20. So only odd number should be printed. So it's 1, 3 up to 19. Okay. So this is how we can design for loops. You can try a few more examples like factorial, Fibonacci series, and all that. That will help you to become more confident in loops. Now, next type of loop that I want to talk about is for each loop. So let's look at the syntax. Okay, now one problem I want to mention here is whatever loops we have seen, while loop, for loop, and all, one problem is I need to really know what exactly the entry point is and what is the end point, right? But in case of for each loop, we really don't need to. Let's say there are some good examples where we can use in arrays. Okay, arrays are highly dependent on indexes. There, what we do is we have, when we take input or when we populate the data from the array, we have to be very careful because we can only read arrays using its indexes. Sometimes we do a mistake, right? I mean, we forget what the maximum number of element it has or what should be the last index and all that. So we exceed that index sometimes. So we get an error, index out of bounds, these kind of errors. So at those situations, this loop, for each loop, is really very important. And in automation testing also, let's say we have to populate different type of controls. We don't know how many total controls it's going to be. So we cannot iterate, right, using for loop or while loop, because we need to know entry point and exit point and all that. So for each loop at those situations is really very helpful to use. So what I will do is I will basically illustrate for each loop in arrays. That is our next topic, and we will get more clarity on it. So now let's talk about arrays.